Okay, it's very simple. The facts are very simple. Okay, we're going on the assumption that that Sfiras Omer today is Derabanan, not Deraisa. Okay, because if it's Deraisa, then this whole issue we're discussing is irrelevant. The Rambam holds Deraisa, but Tosfos, the Bahag, and most Gaonim hold it's Derabanan, and that's how we pass in today for the most part. Okay. All right, so you have a Machlokes between Tosfos and the Bahag on three. There's three levels to the Machlokes, so to speak, or three areas. Okay, so the first issue is Tosfos seems to hold.
The counting.
Yeah, Sfiras Omer. Today, why do we do Sfiras Omer today? Because it's Zeichel L'Mikdash. Okay, that's how we do it today.
They bring a carbon every day.
No, they didn't bring a carbon every day. They brought the Omer on the second day of Pesach, and then they counted until the Shtei Lachan, which was on Shavuos. Okay.
Well,
so the counting. Yeah.
Did you answer Max, by the way? What do you wanted to know?
Possibly.
His question?
Yeah, I don't remember. Anyway, what's on? Remind me at the end. So we say Zeichel Mikdash. Okay, so now you have Machlokes, Tosfos, and Bahag. So the first step is Tosfos holds that you can count Sfiras. You should count Sfiras Omer when? When should you count it? What time of the day? Benish Mashos. Okay, Tosfos holds is Adif. It's better to count. The why? Why does he hold that way? Because it's Temimus. Right? If you want to get the best possible completeness, count Sfira during Banish Mashos. Right? Why? Because what will happen? You count before it says. And then when Seis comes along, let's say it's the 25th day, you count 10 minutes before it says. When the 25th day the Omer comes, at Seis Kochavim, what have you now done?
The full day. The
full day. You've now defined the day as the full day of Sfiras Omer. Okay? So according to Tosfos, that's the ideal way to do it. Okay? The Bahag says no.
Miss any part of the day.
Right. The Bahag says no, you count from Seis Kochavim. Okay? That's one. Next. Tosfos holds if I forget at night. Let's say I forget to count the nighttime. Can I make it up during the day?
Yeah.
No.
No, he's the Bahag.
No.
Okay.
Right. So Tosfos holds if I forgot to count last night, okay, 14, okay, I can't make it up during the day. Okay? Whereas Bahag holds it's not a problem. You can make it up during the day. Okay? And the third thing is that Tosfos holds if I miss an entire day, if I miss counting the 24th day, no problem. You can start counting the 25th. Bahag holds that no. If you miss an entire day, you're done counting Sfiras Omer. Okay, clear?
Can't count anymore?
According to the Bahag, you can't count. There's no reason to count anymore. Okay?
Even without a bracha.
Even without a bracha. That's an Achronim thing. We'll get to that. Okay? Now, we started with this Ran yesterday. It's important to just review the Ran. So the Ran first says, the Ran brings in this, because you want to understand this, the Machlokes between Tosfos and the Ran if you don't understand this. So again, what does the Ran say? The Ran brings in this Agadata. So what does the Agadata say? The Agadata says that when Bnei Yisrael got out of Mitzrayim, so Moshe said to them, Tavdun es halokim al har hazeh, which means what? Tavdun es...
you will worship God, something like that.
At this...
On the mountain.
On the mountain. So Bnei Yisrael said, when? So Moshe said in 50 days. So what did Bnei Yisrael do? They counted Sfiras Omer. So the Ran says, he says, Kolomar, Bizman hazeh, she'ein anu mevi'in korban v'lo Omer, since today we don't bring a korban or Omer, but rather, what do we do? We think 50 days to the giving of the Torah. So that's why, according to the Ran, that's why the Chachamim were Koveya, Sfiras Omer today, Midrabanan. Okay? What question do we ask on that? Which makes the Ran seem absurd on the surface. The Ran says the reason why we count Sfiras Omer, I'm asking you.
Oh, you're asking me?
Or you. Oh, okay. What about Zeichel Mikdash? So he himself says, he says, V'zeh vadai derech medrashu. Dikar de milso Zeichel Mikdash. So if the real reason is Zeichel Mikdash, so why is the Ran bringing this Agadata? Right? You got to be careful with this. This is very dangerous. I'm not interested in the philosophy of why Bnei Yisrael counted 50 days. That's a separate question. The question is halachically, why is he bringing a medrash in here? Okay? So what do we say?
Said that it's we needed to see that before there was this mechanism before
well, he gave the summary. Okay.
By the time of the Mikdash, they had to have the beginning for.
Yeah, because what's bothering the Ran? It's a fascinating idea if you buy it. What's bothering the Ran is that fine, you're going to tell me Zeichel Mikdash, but what are the two other examples of Zeichel Mikdash that we used? Come on, guys. Korach
and
Korach. Okay. Notice Korach. What do you have by Korach? What do you have by Lulav? Right? What do you have? What makes Korach, let's say, different than Sfiras Omer?
You have the two main components.
Right. Korach, you have something to build off of. You have matzah, right? Which exists. So now they say, since you have an existing component of Korach there, so you can build Zeichel Mikdash off of that. Okay. What don't you have by Sfiras Omer? You have nothing. The Ran says, he says That's what he says is, She'ein anu mevin korban v'lo omer. We have nothing. We don't have anything.
You have the
So-
ability to count.
Who,
That's
but it's
all it was.
before the Medrash, prior to the Medrash. Okay, before he brings the Medrash in. If all he had was Zeichel Mikdash, the Ram would say, you can't do Sfiras Omer today. You can't make a Zeichel Mikdash. Yeah, without something to build off of. You can't just say Sfira. What's counting? So what the Ram's telling you is that there is a halachic precedent to counting. Okay, there's a precedent. Counting existed. Counting existed prior to the Omer. What did the Torah do? It took that Sfira that Bnei Yisrael did, put it into Sfiras Omer, put it to actually tied it to Sfiras Omer, but it's able to exist as an independent component. So there is still an existing counting. You know what I mean? That's how you can build Zeichel Mikdash off of that. That's why I'm positing. That's why the Ram brings this Agat at the end.
But he's still saying it's because of Zeichel Mikdash.
It's still because of Zeichel Mikdash, but in order for it to be a legitimate Zeichel Mikdash, okay, what must it be? It must have a precedent of Sfira. Sfira must exist independent of the actual Korban Omer. Now, why does the Ram say that? Okay, what pushes him to say that? That's where we left off yesterday. And you'll see. Okay? Because that makes sense in and of itself, but the question is, why is Iran insisting on going down this road?
Okay. Don't we also say that the Mikdash had it only because of what they did in Mitzrayim?
It's true. But then what happened to the Sfira? When the Sfira became part of the Omer, what chalos did the Sfira now have? It became part of the institution of Beis HaMikdash. You know what I mean? So that still exists. That's why they can have a Zeichel HaMikdash. Normally you would say, but it only still exists because it can exist separately from the Omer. You understand?
What's the importance of...
No, I'll give you an example. Let's say what was the importance of Zeichel HaMikdash in general?
Why do we have to say Zeichel Mikdash? Why can't we say...
That's what the Gemara says. The Gemara says Zeichel HaMikdash.
I'm saying...
Why the Gemara says Zeichel HaMikdash? Oh, that's a separate question. Someone else asked that. Like, why is it... You asked that, right? Why is it only these things we do Zeichel HaMikdash for? Okay?
I'm saying, why do we have to say Zeichel Mikdash and not...
Because we forget everything.
Like, because of what they did in Mitzrayim, the
You
same
mean,
idea.
so the Gemara is never going to possibly based on a medrash. It's a medrash. You know what I mean? You can't take a medrash and make it halachic. All the Ron's trying to do is to say that since there was a precedent, the Torah took that precedent and made it part of Omer. Okay? Okay. So now comes the best part of this. It's my favorite part. This is the part we left off at yesterday. So now, the Ron takes out a shotgun and blows Tosfos out of the water. Because he says as follows. The Ron says, Tosfos, he says, how could you possibly, this is like one of the greatest kashas ever, I think. Tosfos says, the Ron says to Tosfos, how can you possibly tell me, okay, I was reading it inside, he says, in the second underline, so one kashi has is that, what gives you the right to put yourself in a situation of Beinish Mashos? You should wait till Tzeis. Okay, forget that. This is V'imishum Temimus. Okay, so Tosfos is positing,
I forget that.
okay, Tosfos is positing that it's the reason why it's better to count during Beinish Mashos is because now you're going to get a better idea of completeness. Because what's going to happen? Your day will be complete. In other words, your Sefira, when the 25th day happens and you've counted prior to Tzeis, what happens to that 25th day? It's complete, right? That's what his learning Temimus means. You understand? Right. Meaning, if I waited, let's say I wait 10 minutes into Tzeis, is that as complete as counting before Shkia, before Tzeis? No. Right? It's a better level of completion. That's what Tosa says. So the Ran says that is ridiculous. No, that's more than that. That's ridiculous. Why? Is it V'imshum Temimus ein lahachmir b'tmimus uzman hazeh shehumi d'Rabbanan tfei misfira d'Oraisa? So what does that mean? Now, this is you have to actually tease out what he's talking about here, because Sfira today isn't d'Oraisa, right? The Ran himself holds that. What he's saying is like this: how can you possibly tell me that Tosos is somehow implying or suggesting that the Rabbanan came up with a method of Temimus that's superior than what they did when it was actually Chai Midoraisa? Midoraisa, there's no reality to Beinish Mashos. So in the times of the Beis HaMikdash, when do they count Sfira? Tzeis HaKochanim. So you're telling me you came up with a better system? How could that be? Unbelievable kasha. Kasha of epic proportion. It's a sick kasha. Right? Tosfos is trapped now. Right? It's a great kasha in Tosfos. Right? How could it be the Rabbanan came along and are telling you that there's a better method of Temimus, a better, superior Temimus? So that would imply that during the times of the Beis HaMikdash, if you counted after Tzeis, you weren't as good as Tosfos' version. That's crazy. How could that be? Because remember, Beinish Mashos is Rabbanan. There is no, in the times of the Beis HaMikdash, there's no Beinish Mashos that you worry about.
Why did Beinish Mashos come about?
No, it was always Rabbanan from Sinai. But the point is that during the times of the Beis HaMikdash, there was never a Havamina. When Sfira was D'Oraisa, let's take the Rambam. Okay, the Rambam holds today is D'Oraisa. Never changed. The Rambam never entertains the possibility of counting during Beinish Mashos. Because D'Oraisa, you can't do anything Beinish Mashos. It's only Durabanan. I'll give you an example.
Why Bein Hashmashos doesn't exist in Doraisa?
When does Shabbos start? Midoraisa. Says a Kochavam. But Midarbanan, right? They come along and say, we want to be sure you're not over any Yisurim and Shabbos, you have Bein Hashmashos. So therefore, there's Yisurim Malacha start earlier. But in reality, when does Shabbos start? Assuming you didn't accept Shabbos yet, it starts at Seis Kochavam. Because the Doraisa world doesn't recognize the reality of Bein Hashmashos. You're not Yotze a Doraisa that's Chayiv at night.
It's just a fence?
In general, yeah. In essence, yes. I mean, the other situation comes up is by
In
tefillah.
reality, the next day starts at 6.
100%. Everyone holds that way. Well, let's take Mara, for
But then you
example,
can ask another question on Tosfos though.
which is
Is that in reality, if you're saying that the day really does start at 6, then Bein Hashmashos is really on the previous day.
well. Okay, 1 second. So what's Bein Hashmashos then? You're hitting on something good, but not yet. Well, you must say Bein Hashmashos has characteristics of both. How do we know that? So what do we do today? By Erev Shabbos. So most shuls, what they do is that they wait 20 minutes, approximately, okay? Why do you do that? After Shkia.
To make sure
Make sure of what?
that you're in Shabbos.
No, but one second. If Bein Hashmashos is both night and day, so then what's the difference, conceptually, what's the difference between 1 minute after Shkia or 1 minute before Tzeis? They're identical. So what do we hold? We hold, no, it's more night than day as you get closer to Tzeis, okay? It's more night than day. More night than day. But it's not nighttime, okay? It's not Midoraisa nighttime. Midoraisa nighttime is nighttime. It is Tzeis Kochavam. So therefore, Tosos is not making any sense. So what's the Machlokes then? How do you answer Tosos' kasha? Saying is, what's Zeichel HaMikdash according to the Ran? Okay? The Ran's saying that Zeichel HaMikdash, Zeichel HaMikdash is a type of Durabanan. Okay? It's a type of Durabanan. Okay? So let's take Korech. Okay? We'll start with Korech and then you'll see how it applies. When you do Korech, okay? What do we do when we do Korech today? We take matzah and we take mar, right? We do as much as we can
Of the Doraisa.
of the deraisa. We're just lacking a component.
Similar to
So
Tzitzis.
fine, similar to this. Okay, but it's like we're lacking a component. Okay, we're lacking a component. All right. So there is a reality to the korech. Okay, even though right, in other words, we say the korech we do today is a korech of the Beis Hamikdash, but lacking a component. That's what makes it Zeichel HaMikdash. Okay, but it has to emulate the deraisa as much as possible. Right? It has to, as much as possible, emulate the deraisa. Okay. So therefore, because it's a Durabanan. So therefore, what happens over here? What's necessary over here also?
To emulate it as well.
So how could it possibly be that Temimus can exist in Bein Hashmashos?
Right.
Because the emulation of the Oraisa way it was done would be Tzeis Kochavam. So there's no reality to counting SEFIRA beforehand. Doesn't make any sense. It would violate the notion that the Durabanan must emulate the Oraisa as much as possible. Okay? Now come on. If you say that, Tosfos.
So
What must Tosfos therefore say?
would say once you're in the reality of the Rabbanan, then once you're in a Rabbanan, you have to do the earliest in the Rabbanan.
Well, be careful. Okay, but therefore, what is he implying, though? He does agree, in general, the Rabbanans do try to emulate their Raisas. But it's something different about Zecher LeMikdash. See, the Ran's saying, how does the Ran read the term Zecher LeMikdash? It's Zecher LeMikdash. But how does Tosas read it? His emphasis is on the fact that it's a Zecher. So, let's talk about Korach again. According to Tosfos, okay, if you can answer this, you can answer the Svara. According to Tosfos, am I doing Korach
Yeah.
and the Seder?
Oh, no.
No, what am I doing?
Seder.
I'm doing a Zeichel Mikdash Korach. It's a different Korach. It's not the Korach of the Mikdash as lacking component. I'm doing something completely different. Zeichel Mikdash creates an alternate stream. It's not Korach of the Mikdash. It's Zeichel Mikdash. But so therefore, what am I doing today? I'm eating matzah and maror. So yeah, it's true that's what they ate back then, but that should help me remember what they ate back then. But the point though is that what?
And according to Ron, that would.
No, according to Ron, it's actually halachically correct but lacking in component.
I'm trying to remember
It's
something.
Rabbanan Korach. It's like the Korach of the Mikdash, but lacking in component. That's what Tosas is saying. Tosas is saying that conceptually, when you do it, what are you actually doing? Not doing the Korach of the Mikdash. Because if there's no Korban Pesach, what is it? It's nothing. So the Rabbanan come along and create another way to do it. It's a Zeichel Mikdash Korach.
Yeah, but even if, according to
Wait, hold on. So now what Tosas say about SEFIRA? So if you're telling me that what Zeichel Mikdash does in general is that it's in a sense that it's not you're not doing what they did, right? You're just doing something that will remind you what they did in the Beis Hamikdash. So then, why not? Then what you're saying makes sense. It's a Durabanan, so why not do this Temimus? Why? Because the Temimus you're doing of the Zeichel Hamikdash Sefira has nothing to do with the Temimus of the actual Sefira they did in the Beis Hamikdash. It's a different Temimus. You understand?
Yeah.
It's a different Temimus altogether.
Yeah.
The six Sfara. It's a six Sfara. No, it really is. It's an amazing idea. No, when I worked it out, I was working out Rindy. I was like, wow, it makes so much sense.
It was like Sfaras.
No, but think about it though. But it makes so much sense. It's an amazing machlokes. It really makes sense insofar as why the Ran's kasha is such a strong kasha. His kasha is that Zeichel Mikdash, but that's just another type of derbanan, and it must emulate the Deraisa as much as possible. So how can you what gives you the right to say Temimus? But because how is the Ran looking at Tosfos' version of Temimus? He's thinking that Tosfos is saying what? That my Temimus is the same Temimus as the Temimus of Sfira Midaraisa. He's not saying that. Tosfos is saying
reality to this.
He's saying that the Rabbana, the Zeichel Mikdash, tries its best to emulate the Deraisa, tries to replicate it. That's why I use Korach as the example.
In a different understanding of why you replicate.
Right,
you're replicating it to do what they actually.
You want to do as much as possible what they did in the Beis Hamikdash.
But according to Tosfos, it's just to remember what.
That's it. Tosfos is saying that there's no such idea like that because you know why? There's no reality to the Sefira of today of being the Mikdash. It's not a true. It's not Sefira Mikdash. It's called the Sefira of Zeichel Mikdash. It's a different Sefira. So if it's a different Sefira, right, then the kasha Temimus falls away. Because you're not telling me that you're doing a better form of Temimus. It's a different Temimus. That's why it could be other doing Benish Mashos. But Tosfos would agree that when the Mashiach comes and the Beis Hamikdash is built again, he'd agree that you would never count during Benish Mashos. Because now we've lost the Zeicher, and now we've gone back to the actual way Sefira is supposed to be done.
So his Bein Hashmanos has nothing to do with being more than
Yeah, he's not outdoing the Deraisa. He's saying it's a different Sefira today. It's a different idea of Temimus. It's a Temimus that's attached to the Sefira of Zeichel Hamikdash. That's a different Sefira.
But still, then why does he do it that way? Why does he choose to do it?
Oh, because so now it turns out, because this is a different way of doing it, there is a better way to do it. Midrabanan. Like Arya was saying, you're in the world of Rabbanan already. So why are you doing Benish
Why
Mashos?
did they do Bein Hashmanos with the Beis Hamikdash?
Because there's no reality of Benish Mashos in the Beis Hamikdash.
It didn't exist?
No, it can't be because Oraisa. There was no Chiyav D'Rabbanan of counting Sefira Omer. There's only Chiyav D'Oraisa. So the D'Oraisa was, when does D'Oraisa nighttime start? Say Zechol Chavim. You can't count Benish Mashos. There's no reality to it.
But even according to Tosfos' idea of Zecher, it's not better to remember something and to have all the components of it, like to do it, to replicate as much as possible?
Well, okay, that's what I'm trying to, the core dispute is that Tosfos, there's a problem according to Tosfos of doing that, because in reality, what's really bothering them is that, can you actually replicate things done in the Beis Hamikdash if you're missing the essential components? So because that makes sense. Tosfos is, he does make sense. It's a funny thing. I'm doing Korach, right? But come on. I'm missing the Korach Besach. So what kind of Korach is this? What kind of Korach is Korach if I'm missing a third of what I'm supposed to be doing? And by the way, if you read the Torah literally, it's Al Matzos Umorim, which implies that the Korban Pesach is the essence. So what kind of thing is that? How does that have a halachic chalos shem of Korach if I'm missing one of the most important components?
Well, even if you're not looking for the chalos of it, then, but still, if he's putting such emphasis on Zecher, then to remember something, you need to have as many components as possible.
No, so he does do that.
Not really though.
He does. What do you mean? No, he agrees by Korach you're using Matzamar. But what he's saying is, don't think for a second that when you're doing the Korach today that you're doing the Korach of the Beis Hamikdash but lacking a component. He's saying that you're doing a special thing that reminds you about the Beis Hamikdash. Of course, we wanted to mimic the Beis Hamikdash stuff as much as possible. But the question is, do you actually imbue in that practice a halachic phenomenon, a halachic chalos shem, or not?
But he doesn't do Benish Mashos to be neged. He just does it because he thinks that's better.
Once we're in the world of Zeichel Mikdash Sefira, right, and the pure D'Rabbanan world, which really is disconnected, so to speak, from the D'Oraisa, then why not? Why not do it?
Be neged, and what's his name would say, and the Ran would say that you could do that.
The Ran saying Zeichel Mikdash is like any other D'Rabbanan. Okay, and D'Rabbanans try their best to emulate D'Oraisas. So therefore, you can't go ahead and try to outdo it. But he's saying the Sefira you do today of D'Rabbanan is really the Sefira D'Oraisa, but lacking. We're lacking the Korban Omer. One more point. That's why my svara in the beginning about the Agadata makes so much sense. Because the Ran was struggling. The Ran has to work out that there's a halachic legitimacy to Sefira today in order to ask the kasha on Tosfos.
Yeah, it actually.
You understand that? You see that?
His angle.
Right, exactly. It's all one svara by the Ran. Do you understand that point? It's a critical point.
Say it one more time.
The reason why I was insistent, I asked the question, why does the Ran insist on bringing this Agat to him? The reason is very simple, because the Ran, his overall svara Zeich LaMikdash is, it must replicate Doraisas as much as possible. But if there was no reality to Sefira to build off of, then he's stuck. He'd have to go Tosfos' way. But he holds consistently, I can't prove it, but he holds consistently that Zeich LaMikdash is always done like a normal Durabanan that mimics Doraisa. But you need an existing thing to build off of. You know what I mean? Otherwise, you're in Tosfos world. You understand? That's what leads him to that Kasha and Tosfos. He loads his gun up with his first svara to shoot at Tosfos by the second thing.
Right, so
Now comes a classic question. What do you call it? Which there's many classic answers for. So now the question is, now this is your question, Ezra, about Temimus itself. Okay, so the Bahag holds that if you forget the night, if you forget the night, what do?
You can say it the next day.
Right, you count during the day, and if you miss an entire day, a 24-hour period of time, you're done. Tosfos holds the opposite. Tosfos holds if I forget the nighttime.
You can say the day.
So just without getting into the next position, reading Mari who died. So obviously they have two different ideas of what?
Counting?
No.
What did you count?
No, close. Temimus. Okay. So what is on the surface? What does Tosfos hold? Temimus is a din in what? Think about just apply practically. Tosfos says if I forget the day, if I forget the nighttime, I can't make it up anymore.
Right.
But if I get an entire day,
So-
I can start the next day. So what's Temimus a din in?
The whole thing.
No,
not
the
the
Tosfos.
whole thing. Sorry, the days.
The day. Tosfos holds Temimus is in the day, and the Bahag holds Temimus is in the
Entire.
Okay, and the Rav brings down his svara is a famous svara is that obviously Tosfos holds each day is its own mitzvah, right?
Temimus, Bahag is saying Temimus in the entire counting.
Yeah. Whereas Bahag holds that Temimus there's one mitzvah of Sfiras Omer, right? That's okay. But it's interesting. You could stop there if you wanted to.
Where's the idea of Temimus brought down?
The Torah says Sheva Shabbosos Temimos Tiana. Question: what does that mean? Okay, you could stop there, but there's something. There's one thing that's unsatisfying about just saying that, which is the flip side of the coin to each position. Now think about it. Okay, let's get Tosfos a little clearer. So the Rav said, what did Tosfos hold? Tosfos held that each day is its own mitzvah. Okay, what is that? Now let's take that idea and put it into what is the Maisa Sefira then according to Tosfos? Remember, Tosfos says the best way to do Sefira is to count when? Ben Hashmashos. Okay? Saying if you want the best, have it Temimus. So therefore, what are you doing when you do a Maisa Sefira?
A mitzvah.
We said that already. What else are you doing? Take that idea further. Not just a mitzvah, but what is it? What's the result of doing that?
You're making Kaddish today.
Not
Making
Kaddish.
today.
I would say Kaddish because then it means Isra Malacha. But you're certainly creating. It's not just an action of counting. But what does the action do? You create like almost like a chalos of a Yom Sfira, right? Why? How do I know that? Because Tosfos says, inverse logic. Tosfos says if I count beforehand, right? What do I produce then? The full day, right? And that's why Tosfos says if I miss. Think about it logically. If I miss the nighttime, why according to Tosfos can I not make it up during the day?
Because then you won't have the full day.
Not just you won't have the full day, you've lost
The idea of Yom.
you've lost the Rove day. So without Rove day, how can you create a Chalos of day? Right? You need a majority of a day. In other words, if you're going to tell me, Tosfos says the best idea to me is to count Banish
But
Mashos.
if it was Rove, then he could say it.
What is Rove over?
What?
In the morning. 12 hours a day have passed, right?
But he would say if it's
No, as he
if
said
there is
before
still
that.
over the day left, then he would say that
You still have Temimus. The best Temimus is the complete. But you can still create a Chalos of the day, like almost like a Chafsa day, but a Chalos of the day, if I have Rove of the day.
Where do you see
But once you
that?
lose Rove, you don't. That's Tosfos' Chiddush. It's his Chiddush, okay?
it's just not really. A day.
But what's amazing about Tosfos though? Think about the implication of what he's saying. Okay. See, this is what the Rav doesn't mention this, which is funny. I don't know why he doesn't, but it's a funny thing. What's the implication? If you're telling me that I can't make up the day, right? If I miss the nighttime, because in the day itself, right, I can't produce Temimus if I'm lacking the Rav of the day. But what can I do if I miss an entire day? Let's say I miss the 24th.
You can start over.
I can. Well, what do you mean by start
The
over?
next one.
I can start 25th, right? Okay. So therefore, according to Tosos, is there any kiyum on the surface?
On the whole, no.
So therefore, according to Tosos,
It's not really counting. It's kind of just individual days.
right. So therefore, according to Tosos, come on, Pinsky, make the final step. If, according to Tosos, we have to answer this. But according to Tosos, how should you count Sirius Omer today? Hayom Yom.
Just yom. No yamim.
Hayom Yom Ba'omer.
Yeah.
Hayom Yom Ba'omer. Every day should be Hayom Yom Ba'omer, right? You understand that? In other words, you should be logic. You should say that Tosos should hold that every day is really Hayom Yom Ba'omer.
I don't get that.
Okay.
How does that solidify the counting?
No, because what's the mitzvah according to Tosos? It's on each day. And each day you create its own Yom of Sefira. So therefore, what's the value? This is what you have to answer. What's the value in separating the 10th and the 11th when in essence all I'm doing is I'm counting each day? You know what I mean?
Our assumption.
I'm assuming this. It's my assumption in Tosos. Okay. By the way, now let's just to be fair, let's swerve to the other side. So what does Bahag hold?
You
Doesn't
can't.
matter at all about the day.
No, if you miss, you can't say it all.
No, right.
Yeah.
So Bahag holds that according to Bahag, when have I fulfilled my mitzvah, so to speak, of Sirius Omer?
When it's done.
When it's done, right? So in a sense, just define it first. What's the purpose of counting each day then, according to the Bahag? What are you doing when you count each day?
Adding up.
Right. So what is each? So okay, you're right. You're adding. It's not really adding up in that sense, but yes, you're right. It's adding up. But what's the actual Misa? Is there a Misa sphere according to the Bahag of each day? No. So what are you doing each day?
Just waiting.
No, but you still have to count according to the Bahag. So what are you doing? You're demarcating. You're just demarcating that this is a day that's part of Hayom Yom Echad Ba'omer, meaning the Bahag looks at Ba'omer as being the day in that overall fulfillment of my overall mitzvah of Omer. But the day itself, in and of itself, doesn't really have its own separate identity.
So what's the point of?
By the way, why am I emphasizing this point? Because if you want to see the bridge between this and how the Achronim take it up, you have to get this point clear. Okay? But what is the Bahag? But I'm saying that's what the Bahag holds. The Bahag is saying it would seem that way on the surface. The Bahag must hold that what's the value in counting each day? It's not. There's no inherent value. It's just there to serve the purpose to count towards the overall kiyum of Temimus, right?
Meaning that there's just a point of getting to that 50.
That's when you yotzi your mitzvah. You yotzi your mitzvah when you get to the 50. So therefore, what's each day? Oh, so each day only serves one purpose: to demarcate that this is a day of towards the overall Temimus. So what do you say with Tosos? Why would Tosos say you should count each day? He does hold.
Where
You count
so
the 1, 2, 3, 4, 5.
Can you be Yotze the whole thing according to the Bahag if you miss one day?
No. What does the Bahag hold? If I miss an entire
Say
day.
anywhere bracha.
Oh, he didn't say that.
What do you say?
But he didn't say that. He said, Tosos holds Bahag to say that if I miss a day, I'm done. Which makes sense. Why?
Bahag.
Bahag, which makes sense. Why? Because if that he has Temimus, so what's the point of counting anymore?
Right.
Right? So why would Tosos say you should count today is the first day or the second day or the third day?
So according to Tosfos, though, if you miss 3 days, you could still count even.
100%, or 4 days, or 5 days, or 6 days, or 8 days, or 10 days. Now, what are you lacking in? You are lacking in the sense that each day you're chayav. There's a mitzvah to count each day. So you're lacking insofar as that day I didn't count. I lost my mitzvah of that day. You know what I mean?
Why can't?
But there's no. He's not saying you're lacking in Temimus.
So according to Tosfos,
Tosos says Temimus exists only in the day, not in the 50.
If from the time of the
Fascinating, no?
When if they counted for the second day of Pesach, from when they start bringing the Omer, why does it matter if they miss a day or not? Why can't they just continue?
According to the Bahag, it matters a lot because if you miss a day, you'll never get Temimus, never get completeness. Completeness means I counted 50 days, or whatever, 49, but 50 days. 50 days have been counted.
according to the Temimus is plural though, no?
Completeness, completed weeks or days, whatever you want to say. Sheva Shabbosos, which is a question what that means, but 7 completed. The Torah reads easier according to Bahag. Don't get me wrong, not according to Tosos, but that's a separate
I'm
question.
saying, like, can we say that there's a problem in, like, according to Bahag, there's just one completeness?
What do you mean? Why not, right? So look at the rhyme. It says because of Mar Yehudai. This is also Sajagon. Okay, so Mar Yehudai says, Deman delo mani omer belele kama So according to that, he held as follows. He holds, if you didn't count Sfiras Omer, okay? If you didn't count Sfiras Omer on the first night, lo mani b'shar leilos. Now, when he says the first night, by the way, he means the first 24-hour period of time. Meaning like this. Let's say, like you, Yaakov, I think it was you, right? Let's say you missed the first day of Sfira. Completely. Okay? According to Mar Yehudai, done.
School me, man.
Done. Okay? Perish. The Mishum Diba'inun Temimus.
Where are you?
It's in source 7. In the middle. The third set of bold lines. Okay? The Mishum Diba'inun Temimus. About Bishar Leilosa, Heicha de lo mani me'orta, mani mi'mama. Okay? Rav Haiza Cholek v'Omer Mishum Debai Temimus Shachach ve'Echad Yamim Nami Chasar Minyan Lefikach Omer Shim Lo Sofer B'Layla Sofer B'Yom. So what's he saying? So Sajagon is presenting the following interesting wrinkle. Sajagon says, if I forget the first day in its entirety, if I forget the entire first day, according to that, I'm done. There's no counting anymore because there's no way I can have Temimus. It's an impossibility. Okay. So Rav Hai says that doesn't make any sense. Right? Because what's the difference between missing the first day or the 12th day or the 15th day? Right? If you miss any day, you're going to be missing in Temimus. Right? So what is Sajid going to hold?
The only
If
reason
you're on the
miss
49th, you're a Kovea of 49 days,
Right.
and then each day is
Let's say I
part of
start.
49
Let's say I
days.
start my counting on the second day, according to this way of learning Tosfos through Sajivan. If I start by counting on the second day of the Omer, okay, what is, even though each day is its own mitzvah, you're right, it's part of a process of counting of 50 days. But if I start the second day, my mitzvah is now a process of what? Of 49 days. That's the problem. See, in other words, you need to have the first day, because the first day is telling you that now my mitzvah is one of this process of 50 days. But if I started counting the second day, I'm in a sense lying, because what I'm saying is that now it's a mitzvah of 49. Or if I started, whatever, if I missed that's the problem. Your
That's
days...
right.
The mitzvah can never be one of that process of Sefira. It's an impossibility.
If you miss like the fourth day or whatever, you relate it back to the first day.
Because now I'm counting 5 of 50 or
Right.
8 of 50.
Some
But if
significance to that first
but if I don't have the first day, then I'm starting the second day and I'm saying I'm counting 1 of 49. That's not Sfiras Omer. That'll be a lie. That's what he holds. That's what he holds. Why am I emphasizing that position? It's a brilliant position. Why is it important though? Because now I want to show you that's why Tosfos does maintain why you can't just say Hayom Yom Ba'omer. Because he does maintain that there is a process here. It's part of you're part of a counting process. Okay, so that's what. Not Temimus. It's not Temimus. It's just that there's a counting process.
Part of the idea is to be an overall of the.
Yes, it's 1 of 50. You're doing the mitzvah today is mitzvah 1 of 50 potential mitzvahs. Okay, but if I don't have that 1, so I'm lying. I'm saying I have 1 of 49 potential mitzvahs. That's a lie. That won't be appropriate. Well, it's really 49 versus 48. Just to be accurate, it's not 50, but whatever. Because you never count the 50th day. But whatever. You know what I mean. There's no Yom Yom Chamishim Omer. What?
It's weird though.
Why?
How does the Odyssey think of it like that though?
No, I don't know about that.
In terms of
I don't know.
what Tosfos was thinking,
I don't know. No. I disagree with you. I think the Bahag is more difficult because the Bahag is basically telling you that you spend all this time counting, and really it's
Okay, but that makes
until the
sense.
last day.
If you think about what the whole process is for, though, like what is inherent in the day?
Okay, so that's okay. Good transition. So, what you were asking me before about Max. Okay, so the thing is like this. What is counting? Counting is interesting. Normally, what does counting do? All right. What counting usually does? Let's take like counting by nida. Okay, so when a woman counts her clean days or whatever days that she's tummy, it doesn't matter each one.
It's such a
weird
connection.
No, you'll see.
Well,
But what is she? But what is she? Right. But what's she counting to?
It's like, what do they have to do?
So what is she counting for? She's counting days until she's no longer tummy.
Yeah.
Okay, that's the count. The count is I am now tummy and I'm counting days until I'm no longer tummy. Okay. But it's interesting. This counting here is a different kind of counting. What this counting does is that it's mitzarif. It's tying together 2 events. Okay, in the Beis Hamikdash, Ksiras Omer to Shtei Lachem, and the times of, if you want to take the drush, what's it really tying together? Yetzias Mitzrayim, Matan Torah. But that's not a crazy idea, because if you think about it, there's a notion to think that Yetzias Mitzrayim is independent of Matan Torah. But you see, even at the Seder, we have the 4 Lashonos of Geula. One of them is V'lakachti, meaning that there is no inherent value to take a Bnei Yisrael out of Egypt if there's no Matan Torah. So the idea of the counting here is that it's not it's a mitzvah. If you're tying together Pesach to Shavuos. Like I said before, it's not a coincidence that Ksiras Omer and Shtei Lechem happen to come out second day of Pesach and Shavuos. The agricultural phenomenon isn't necessarily divorced from the idea of Pesach and Shavuos. It's not a coincidence. They're tied together in some way. But the point is that you're connecting the two. You connect Pesach to Shavuos. That's what the counting does.
That's what
Okay?
the Hagman says.
I'll leave it at that. Okay. Now, just to push this further,
What's the importance of connecting them?
you shouldn't think that you shouldn't think that you can form
Why?
a nation.
What's wrong with that? Oh.
No, you shouldn't think you can form an Am. Bnei Yisrael was able to be formed without Matan Torah. Because that's what you would think, especially because it's a significant period of time between Yetzias Mitzrayim and Matan Torah.
Right.
So you would think that there's a value to the Am, right, outside of Matan Torah.
Also,
There's
you can say
none.
the other way around. You can't just get Matan Torah without having Yetzias Mitzrayim.
You're right, but the whole purpose of Yetzias Mitzrayim is to bring the Matan Torah. It goes that's the order. It follows the chronology. You can't go backwards in time. It doesn't work that way. Okay. Now, Psak. This is where things get interesting. Okay. Okay. If you take a look at the tour. Okay.
Is this a clean coat?
They're in that cabinet. They're
So take a look at the tour.
One, like,
About what?